For fantasy bros in recent years, it's been feast or famine. Now, I can't quite think of too many feasts, but when it comes to famine, I mean, you take a look at virtually every TV show that's out there, and you take a look at a lot of the tabletop stuff, and yeah, it's been plague after plague, if we're being completely honest. And one of the hardest hit, if not the hardest hit franchises out there, is the OG in the game, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, like the fact that the whole, Critical Role team came in and ended up usurping the franchise and the fan base. That was one of the biggest undercuttings that could have ever happened to D&D. And as such, the entire community, the entire game, the entire brand has been usurped and gate kept out. So all of the people that made Dungeons and Dragons a household name to begin with are now on the outside looking in and being constantly ridiculed as a bunch of activists, talentless hacks, are wearing the franchise as a skin suit and driving any outside reputation further and further into the ground, because you have things like this, right? Like Dungeons and Dragons supplements, uses Goblins, men's rights activists. Like, what do we do? Like, is this 2012? You're scared of MRAs? Like, is that what we're doing out here? As example of how DMs should present evil in storytelling. Well, that's interesting, because I thought there was no such thing as good and evil. It was only a matter of perspective. Let's take a look at this. Dungeons and Dragons has a massive problem with woke activists working on their current iteration of the game and tie-in supplement for the Lazy DM's Forge of Foes by Sky Flourish was exposed for its rant on anti-colonialism. Holy shit. It is now shown to be even worse, painting goblins as men's rights activists. Okay, cool. The guys that are worried about the disproportionate treatment in family courts, the ongoing mental health crisis for men. Yeah, no, they're goblins, right? It's been a rough, it's been a rough year for D&D players. Which one are you talking about in particular? Watching their beloved role-playing game of questing, fighting monsters turned into a political cudgel and social conditioning tool by the Hasbro Corporation. 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide infamously has incorporated BDSM fetish community practices in the game. What? For safe spaces, having players make an X with their arms if they feel triggered by a situation, and requiring a DM to stop the game and address the player in question. 2024 Player's Handbook. Yeah, man, we talked about this before, and this shit is super cringe. This film are filled with with imagery of BIPOC and female characters, at the margin of more than 5-to-1 for white male characters, even though you take a look at the fan base and the player base, and it's like, there's a stereotype for a reason, because that's the people who play this stuff. Well, not the new stuff, like they play the old stuff, like all of the old handbooks that, still circulate to this very day. About the direct opposite of the demographics, who play the game. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not anyone who plays the game. I was invited to a game way back in the cut. I never made it around to it. It was wild. It was by a chick I was with at the time, but I gave her something else to roll in the interim. The 2024 Monsters Manual gender swaps traditionally female creatures, like dryads and hags, and makes them succubus and incubus into a transgender allegory. It's shit like this that just drive away people even more, because there's a perception about D&D players, and then you start to, even for the interested people, you start to do this type of stuff, and it's like, oh bro, you already had a minute audience, and then you just shrink it even further, make it for the modern audience, and we've seen it time and time again. The modern audience doesn't exist. License supplement went viral called Forge of Foes in the Lazy DM series for Sky Flourish, which had a whole page of anti-white rad. What? About colonialism to destroy players' immersion in the game. Holy shit. Okay. Supplement urges players to make villainy a choice and not a trait, urging players to say that, to not say that gnolls are attacking, but gnoll bandits are attacking. Holy shit, to avoid racism against monsters. Oh my god. That would be like if Treebeard was lecturing, Merry and Pippin. Oh, look at, the orcs are ripping down parts of Fangorn Forest, and Treebeard looks over. No, young master hobbits, they are Urukai. They are Urukai bandits tearing down my friends. However, another example of the book is going viral as it gets worse in the pages that the woke activists wrote into this supplement. Alright, ex-user Ginger Blast posted an excerpt that shows a very cringeworthy example about the Goblins. One of the most standard adventure books in fantasy games goes something like this. Goblins are attacking the village. The character needs to help. It's a straightforward setup. It's fun, but as written, it embraces the explicit idea that goblins are attacking the village simply because that's what goblins do. So when the hook comes to mind or appears in a published adventure, put yourself in the frame of the mind that attacking villages, this is what goblins do across the board. It's exactly what goblins do across the board. Then figure out what kind of goblins might engage in that sort of behavior. Goblins, right? For example, goblin cultists are attacking the village, or goblin bandits are attacking the village. How would you even know? Like, do they wear name tags as to what their group affiliation is? It's like, yeah, goblins are attacking. Like, we don't know. We didn't know what the leadership hierarchy of the goblins were when they were in Khazad-dûm attacking the Fellowship. I know this is a second Lord of the Rings reference. I've just been, immersed in Middle Earth since the beginning of the year. Like, I've been watching The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings on repeat. So do forgive me while I see other, fantasy IPs being besmirched by activists, and I get a little bit cross. Yes, goblin refugees are attacking the village. Well, see, that one's a little bit more accurate. It'd either be goblins attacking the village, or you get my point. Goblins men's rights activists are attacking the village. What? That is legitimately in there, huh? That's crazy. Yeah, goblins men's rights. Yo, what the fuck? That's crazy. It's not only absurd as a premise in the books, yeah, because you have goblins. Why would they be men's rights activists? That's bonkers, okay? Evil, infernal beings, yeah, that they are, by nature, creating conflict, but using men's rights activists as an example is laughable because it's such a political modern trope. It ruins fantasy storytelling. Don't worry, though. That's not even the most recent stupid thing a D&D has done, because yes, a Dungeons & Dragons monster manual for the year of our Lord 2025 removes orcs and edits Lich terminology to be politically correct towards the Jews. Wait, what? Yo. And it's wild, right? Because I'll make another Lord of the Rings reference here. You know how they always say how orcs are black people, and we need to make sure that they're not coded in that direction. That's why, that one has a side shave and an axe and is, shown around a little orcling. And it's also the same way that stupid Rings of Power Season 2 had Glug and his Glug wife and his little Glugling. Because orcs aren't intrinsically evil. And, they weren't written by Tolkien as a irredeemably evil race that he eventually came around to and was like, oopsie daisy, it needed to actually have a path of redemption, or I needed to have, like a clear and coherent backstory to them. So yeah, they are just kind of a rudderless ship. So even without Sauron or Morgoth around, they would eventually just become like ants and just spiral in on themselves without proper leadership. But even seeing, Peter Jackson's interpretation of Middle-earth, the whole idea that orcs are black people and we can't have that, that's racism. It's like, I don't see that, because I just see orcs as, well, they're orcs, right? Like, if you just immediately see a bunch of bloodthirsty violence inflicting rage monsters and you go, black people, that's kind of a you problem. But now we're doing other things. It's also like Harry Potter and those idiots way back in the cut, even before we knew all of her feminist leanings. But J.K. Rowling, oh yeah, she's anti-Semitic because goblins are Jews. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Well, there's a Star of David in the bank that they repurposed for Gringotts. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, that's just a bank. We know who runs the banks, but no. You look at a goblin and you see a Jew, that's another you problem. But apparently, and it's not really all that surprising, but apparently there's some crossover between some of the more, let's just say, verbose Harry Potter fandom and whoever's contributing to new D&D lore. It's like, what are we doing? Dungeons and Dragons have been under scrutiny from gamers over the last year because of its new edition, turning the fantasy game system into a woke nightmare. Yeah, exactly. Now, critics point out to the 2024 Monster Manual, Wizards of the Coast removed polaricities from Liches, okay, because it might be offensive to Jews and that the orcs are missing entirely. Oh, okay. So they don't want to be anti-Semitic aesthetic, and then they just got rid of black people. Fantastic. With a new edition of D&D, Wizards of the Coasts have already, yes, courted controversy with their changes to the game by adding a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda on top of their core rulebooks. But fast forward to the 2025 Monster Manual, fans learn that there are more problems with wokeism apparent in the volume, which is just really, okay, it's kind of like those same people that are out there, you know, with Trump kicking out all the illegal aliens, and all of them are just, all of those freaks, a lot of them over on Blue Cry, posting memes about, oh, hey, Meg, are you going to go clean dishes and pick crops now that all the illegal immigrants are gone? It's like, wow, you immediately see a brown person and you just think tomato picker or broom pusher? Wow. Like, I love to make edgy jokes, and even in my wildest dreams, I couldn't be that racist. That's just weird, man. Like, you guys are wild. The article reveals that the Lich nomenclature, for Felicitys has been removed so as not to be offensive to Jews due to its association with tefillin, used in Judaism for prayer, and therefore the word has been replaced with spirit jars. Oh, okay, cool. On top of this, sphinxes have also been gender classification removed, and are called celestials instead of monstrosities. Oh, because how they are depicted in Hinduism and Buddhism, adding yet another political correctness to the game. Holy shit, bro. Oh, there's alerts. Yay! The most important change from the Monster Manual is a section on orcs was removed entirely from the new edition, whereas the last edition had 4 pages of information on the evil monsters. Now they are only mentioned in the appendices. Oh, no. Now Amazon can adapt it. A table aimed at converting them to new monsters. Interesting. So what, the Morgoth allegory over at Wizards of the Coast is going to pervert orcs even further to create a new form of life? Oh no. It appears as yes, the Monster Manual doesn't understand monsters at all in the new woke edition of Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, that's kind of been a problem with the brand for a very long time, because even prior to me making even entertainment videos or even having a YouTube channel, I've seen the downfall of Dungeons and Dragons. And even as somebody who hasn't played the game but does have sympathy for people who do like the franchise and are seeing it perverted, this is yet another reason why gatekeeping what you love is so important. Here's the thing, man, with Warner Brothers and Amazon actively competing to try to diminish the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work further and further at a more rapid descent, still can't take away the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Even the Hobbit movies, for as goofy as they are still fine. Now that I think about it, there are quite a few good video games that are out there, especially Two Towers, and I'll stand up for Return of the King is one of the best third-person action hack and slash allegories that are out there. Dynasty Warrior clones, it's one of the best that are out there. I really need to fire that up on the legitimate PS2. Yep, definitely. But when you see new shit like this, vote with your wallet. Okay, we've seen War of the Rohirrim absolutely flop, and even when you have the likes of Games Workshop trying to make, 1 in 6 skills for Hera Hammerhand, nobody buying that shit. Support the good stuff, ignore the bad stuff, vote with your wallet, speak up, and don't let these freaks win. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.